Greetings, devout listeners of Ghosts in the Mountains. Caleb here, and I wanted to let you all know that there will be a small change to the show going forward. Dr. Captain Burgess and I have decided that we're not going to bleep out the F-bombs anymore, because hey, who the are we kidding? Okay, I bleeped that one out, but going forward, no more bleeping of the F-bombs. Because, I mean, come on, you guys know what we're saying. Austin and I are a bunch of foul-mouthed old punk rockers, so it's only fitting. But that said, sorry for anybody that doesn't like cursing, but we are what we are, and we're not trying to be anybody else. So with that down, we hope you continue listening to Ghosts in the Mountains, and we hope you enjoy this next episode. The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest in the world, and we just happen to live in them. One thing we can tell you, there are ghosts in the mountains. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. I am your host, as always, Caleb Hanks, and I would be dipped in shit and rolled in breadcrumbs without him. The great, the fiery, the strong, the buff, Dr. Captain Austin Burgess. Brother, how's that for an intro?
I've never heard that one before, so
It's one of my mother's recipes. Either way, thank you all.
Crispy shit nuggets.
Who doesn't love them? Yeah, now we're just abusing the fact that we don't bleep anything out, but we haven't even dropped a F-bomb. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Ghost in the Mountains. We just recently stopped bleeping out F-bombs because, to be perfectly honest with you, I was just kind of tired of editing them out or worrying that I didn't edit one out. So we're not doing that anymore. But let me tell you, Dr. Burgess, I am no chicken. Well, okay, sometimes I am. Only when it comes to ghosts, goblins, spook, specters, and class 5 roaming slimers. Okay, maybe I am a chicken. But today's episode, I don't know how much it actually has to do with a chicken, but
I wish it had more to do with a chicken.
Yeah, you'd think it would.
Yeah, there's a decent amount of chickenry, if that's a word.
It is now, damn it. You're a doctor, you're a captain, and if you can't make your own word, then I don't know who can. Well, see, this is a weird one. Tonight we're talking about a pretty infamous spot here in Asheville, albeit kind of small, succinct, I suppose is a word that you would put to it. Chicken Alley. Now, this is a weird one for me because I have always heard that it was haunted, but at least right now in this moment for the life of me, I really do not remember why. Okay. So you're just the guy to talk to.
Well, do I have the information for you tonight? But yeah, I'd say even if you aren't familiar with the ghost story of Chicken Alley, I think most people, or at least most locals, would probably recognize the big chicken mural that's painted on the wall, or near the entrance to Chicken Alley, at least.
Yeah, and that has not been there for ever.
It came up in 2011.
Okay,
is when that was completed. Sense. Yeah. So Chicken Alley is actually located off of Woodfin Street, kind of near where Lexington Avenue connects with Broadway. And this mural was completed, like I said, in 2011 by someone named Molly Must. I think she's from Virginia, I believe. Pretty infamous mural artist. So they were able to come to Asheville, share their talents as part of one of the city's projects to put up more mural artworks around downtown. But the design of the mural interprets the history of this chicken processing plant that was called Young Poultry and Egg Company that operated between the 1950s and 1970s. in basically the building that's located across from where the mural is. So the building where that was, their back door was butting up to this alley where it's today known as Chicken Alley.
Right. And just in case we somehow didn't mention, this is in Asheville that we're talking about, in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned that or not, but just squaring that away while we're still here.
Yeah. Good to cover that early on. I think it's probably something I probably just assumed was implied, but if you're not familiar,
it's easy for us because we live here. But if you're just tuning in, Austin and I, we hail from the beautiful land of Asheville, North Carolina, the land of the skies. Close enough. You're a Brevard guy, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I still, had my fair share of experiences with old Chicken Alley.
Yeah.
But anyways, going back to this poultry and egg company, it was owned by Sam and Argie Young, and Sam and Argie's granddaughter, Sandra Gudger, who was the only remaining family member with memory of this business. She actually worked with Molly to contribute stories and photographs and help her kind of piece together a visual representation for this mural project of what used to be Chicken Alley with her family's business operating there.
Yeah, that is a beautifully done mural. It's one of the most
It really is
beautiful cocks I've ever seen.
It incorporates a lot of different elements in there. There's even some I think some Cherokee symbols in there to kind of incorporate some of their history there. But Sandra's memories, they just kind of work together to paint this picture of this kind of just like vast agricultural history that this little subsect of downtown Asheville had. Not just her family that was known for beekeeping and poultry raising, but that little stretch of South Lexington Avenue was kind of like a bit of a farmer's market set up at the time. They had a bunch of like shops for farmers, as well as like areas where people could go and sell produce that was locally grown and raised, stuff like that. So it used to be like a really thriving, just market agricultural section of town.
I'm assuming that they benefited from the Buncombe Turnpike, which was,
sure.
There's if you go up near what used to be the Vance Memorial there's these little like imprints of pigs' feet and turkeys' feet and chicken feet that are there because that's where they basically used to parade those guys through there so people could, buy the livestock.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that probably made sense with that being, a couple blocks away from what we're talking about today.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Sandra is actually depicted in the mural that we were talking about. If you've seen it, the young woman that's holding up this jar of honey, that's actually a young Sandra.
Oh, cool.
So she actually collaborated with Molly to not only work with her to give these old photos of herself and that, but she also wrote this poem that's depicted on the mural as well. And it kind of just paints a different time in that area. And I'll go ahead and read that poem here. It's before the likes of Tyson. This was the farmer's town, up and down North Lexington, real goods sold all around. Yes, we dealt in poultry, 3 generations worked the shop, near feed stores in the market, a fixture on the block. Eggs, butter, honey, country hams on the wall. Of course, the fresh killed chickens sold the best of all. Some squawking in the alley, trying to take flight to escape a certain fate of a supper table night. A family of beekeepers, I trimmed the honeycomb. Within the wealth of sourwood, I always felt at home. Economy that you can see and touch, that's what I grew up knowing. And still today, I like to think of honeybees and sewing.
That's actually really sweet.
Yeah, so it's really cool because it just is the cherry on top to kind of paint the history of this kind of real different time of what South Lexington is today, which is kind of like, a little bit of what you would expect from Asheville downtown. You have, a lot of music scene, you get a lot of your art scene, you also get a lot of the kind of riffraff that goes through there, but this was just a whole time and era with the whole agricultural scene really thriving down there at the time.
Well, South Lexington Avenue, as you may have heard, has a little bit of a stigma to it because apparently that's where a lot of the streetwalkers used to hang out. There's a lot of people back in the day were like, oh yeah, she's probably down there on South Lexington Avenue because there was a huge prostitution. That was like the hot spot back in the day.
Well, that actually plays a pretty decent part in today's story if you didn't know.
Well, look, I'm just saying people were choking chickens down there.
So yeah, unlike the name that might be suggested on this, today's story doesn't have any chicken ghosts in it haunting the alley.
And for that, we are truly sorry.
I know. I think that would be the most rad ghost story we uncover yet. But
dude, I'm not even messing around. Would love to hear about a chicken ghost. But then I would also be slightly frightened because if you've ever lived near a rooster and those things just never shut up, Dude, it's like, wow, you decided to come back from the dead just to scream at us?
Well, I might have a little bit of a chicken ghost story towards the end of today's story.
Oh, you were teasing us, DCB.
Maybe a little bit. But we're gonna get to the main story here. And that actually jumps back even further in time before this alley was even known as Chicken Alley.
Oh, hell.
So today's story goes back to 1902. Actually, I guess it kind of starts a little before then because the main events happened in 1902. So to back up a little bit, going into the late 1800s, there was said to be this prominent physician in the Asheville community by the name of Dr. Jamie Smith. He was known for his kind of odd attire. He frequently wore a wide brim black fedora and a long duster-style coat, with him always hiding this medicine bag under his coat, and he had this silver cane that he was known for carrying around.
Was he cosplaying Dr. Battle?
Yeah, so you picked up on that pretty quick, too.
Wow.
A quick side note there, yeah. We'll jump back to a little bit more descriptions on his attire a little bit later. But yeah, that description sounds very, very similar to another prominent Asheville doctor from right around the same time frame, basically known for the same wardrobe. And that is referring to Dr. Samuel Battle from the Battle Mansion episode.
Did they both just happen to dress like that? Or were people mixing these guys up?
Well, let's just get back to the story for now.
Okay, sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
Interesting side note, and it's very interesting you picked up on that. I picked up on that right away, too. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's another doctor that dresses just like this.
An imposter.
Well, anyways, back in those days, Asheville was allegedly somewhat a more rough and raunchy city, as you alluded to. So men that were, working nearby logging industry would come into town for the weekends for a drink and for some company.
All right.
And as you alluded to, South Lexington is
hookers.
Yes.
as I alluded to, hookers.
Those kinds of companies. Anyways, there was kind of, enough money from visiting tourists even those days to keep the bars and the brothels open late from people coming in from all walks of life. A lot of people, like I mentioned, were coming from, hard physical labor jobs coming into Asheville for the weekend, and they'd find, brothels and bars to meet some of these lovely ladies at. And allegedly, Dr. Smith loved every minute of it, is what one quote I saw said. Now, some say that Dr. Smith himself was a lover of the women themselves, while others say that Doctor was more of a fan of just going out for drinks and using this opportunity to recruit some new patients for his practice, whether that was these men that were working these physical demanding jobs that were injuring themselves at work, or whether he was just there ready and prepared to treat some sexually transmitted diseases that were...
he's down there being a vulture peddling penicillin.
Yep, basically so. That's kind of what a lot of the people more alluded to, that he was there knowing STDs were going around those nights, and he's like, oh, I've got the treatment for you the next day, sir.
Dude, gotta say, that is a win-win. Like, what a smart idea. I'm going to go out and get drunk and party, but I'm also going to be like racking in business. That's really smart.
It's a tax write-off, right?
It's hilarious. Good for him.
So either way, Dr. Smith was a regular patron of a bar called Broadway Tavern that was located in what we know now today as Chicken Alley. But I do want to preface that and say that this was a completely different bar than the Broadways down on Lexington Avenue. That are they still open today?
I thought that they had closed. But
maybe they have closed. But
yeah, many a night being a vampire in that spot.
Either way, they're not that far away from each other, but I just want to clear up the confusion that this Broadway is a totally different building establishment than the Broadways that existed not that long ago down on Lexington Avenue.
Man, when I was like 20 years old, I want to say, maybe younger, I remember ending up in like a rave at a place that you accessed via Chicken Alley.
Okay, yeah,
Never went there before, never went there afterwards. I don't know what's there now because I don't really ever go down Chicken Alley, but it makes me wonder if it was the same place.
Maybe. I might have a story from that same basic description you're given on that.
We were at the same place. We were both in there.
Maybe.
Didn't realize it.
I'll jump back to that, but let me go ahead and get back to the old doctor story here. Yeah. So on his last visit to Broadway, old Dr. Smith, he ran into quite the unfortunate situation, because when he walked in, he was just met with this massive bar fight going on. Like, not just two people duking it out, like the entire bar was just like glasses were being thrown across the bar, chairs are being thrown. So he's like ducking, dodging his way through the bar. And Dr. Smith, he recognized two people, maybe there's, some patients of his, and he tried to break up a fight between them. Unfortunately for Dr. Smith, rather than even trying to listen to them, one of the men just turned and stabbed Dr. Smith straight through the heart.
Man.
And the doctor stumbled outside in the alley, but collapsed and died instantly, and his killer was never apprehended. So some believe that his spirit remains there today, tied to the spot where he died. Others believe his ghost is simply still waiting for the next round of drinks that he never got to enjoy. Interestingly enough, this Broadway tavern, alleged tavern that was in the story, it burned to the ground the year after this fatal stabbing happened.
Cursed.
Some people, of course, believe that Dr. Smith's spirit might have had something to do with this fire. Now, there's a few different schools of thought on this. Some people think that he was seeking vengeance for this unsolved murder. Perhaps the killer was there that night that this fire started. But others say that maybe he was trying to act as a guardian spirit in some ways, trying to keep others away from this dangerous tavern so that no one else met the same fate he did.
All right.
You can see where, either of those kind of go on.
I just like the idea of ghost arson because ghosts, they're not scary enough.
Now, one quote on this has to add to the whole mystical allure of Asheville, to add to the whole spookiness here. And they say, people say that things die slowly in the quartz-laden mountains, especially those who meet a tragic or untimely end.
And especially those that don't understand geology.
So, ever since that night, people have reported seeing a strange figure walking the alley. Late at night, he's said to be a shadowy man wearing a long black coat and a wide brim black hat. He carries an old-fashioned physician's bag and a cane with a silver head. People have reported hearing the tapping of the cane as he walks along the pavement, and they kind of assume that this entity is in fact the ghost of Dr. Jamie Smith himself.
Well, it's either that or Alec Baldwin's The Shadow character.
or there's another potential one here. So let's jump back to the whole wide brim hat and long coat thing for a minute, because obviously on top of the Dr. Samuel Battle reference, this is Hat Man attire, obviously. Yeah,
but when you say cloak, you're talking about that the doctor that got stabbed there in Chicken Alley. That's like a cape. Not a coat.
It's kind of a long black coat. I guess.
It's got arms in it.
Yeah, exactly. It's Battle was the one that more wore the cape and the cloak. He was more known for that.
But they would kind of wear a cloak like a cape back in the day.
I guess so. But this is noted to be a long black coat. So it is more of a trench coat style and the wide brim hat. So when I was researching for the Hat Man episode, I was more trying to find like any Hat Man encounters from around here in Western North Carolina. And I found a Reddit post from someone that was a tourist here claiming he took some sort of downtown ghost tour when he was in Asheville. And the tour guide told him that Asheville had its very own Hat Man ghost. But after getting back to his hotel, he was kind of intrigued by this because I guess he'd had Hat Man experiences before. And he's like, whoa, why does Asheville have a specific Hat Man that occurs in one location? So he's sitting here trying to research this, and he's like, I can't find anything. I think my tour guide just made it up.
Right.
And, he's like, he probably was just trying to capitalize on this popular subject. He knows that people taking paranormal tours are probably into a hot paranormal topic like the Hat Man, and trying to kind of like use the popularity of this entity to draw in more attention or maybe add some credibility.
Yeah.
So I read this post and I initially kind of just wrote it off, assuming posters, he's probably correct. But after looking into this Chicken Alley story, I'm pretty confident this is what the tour guide was probably referencing, especially since this ghost tour was in the downtown area. He's talking about, we have our own Hat Man ghost. Probably just loosely alluding to, we have a ghost that dresses exactly like Hat Man is supposed to.
Yeah, sure. He's not claiming that it is the traditional experienced Hat Man. When I was doing some of the first walking tours for the Haunted Asheville Ghost Tour that's owned by Joshua P. Warren, I do not believe that this story was part of the tour. and I could be completely wrong about this because this was just a very long time ago,
Uh-huh.
but this is all news to me.
Okay, yeah, which kind of checks out because, as we've discovered on this podcast, it's hard to touch a paranormal topic and not have Warren's name pop up.
Of course.
In some way, shape, or form. But like even his infamous book, Haunted Asheville, Chicken Alley is not mentioned at all in there. There's not a lot of, all the research I did on Chicken Alley today, none of it tied back to Warren. So I don't think this is necessarily one that, if he did involve it in a tour in some shape or form, it wasn't one that he was prominently involved in kind of bringing light to, like he was with the Pink Lady up at Grove Park Inn. According to this legend, the people who live near Chicken Alley believe, as I mentioned, that the spirit seen in the alley is the ghost of Dr. Jamie Smith himself. He's been seen for over 100 years, and throughout that time, the figure's appearance has been described with extremely remarkable consistency. Same description every single time. Dr. Smith's fashion sense is, like I said, described, pretty distinctive enough to make him recognizable, at least his features recognizable for people that are at least allegedly sharing their experiences and entities. Now, others have heard or reported other kind of spooky paranormal experiences outside of just seeing this entity alleged to be Dr. Jamie Smith himself. Others have heard disembodied voices, smelled smoke, or felt a cold rush of air without explanation. Now,
yeah, we felt some of that today.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just to clue you in on what we're talking about. Yesterday was 80 degrees. I think actually hit 80.
It hit 80.
81,
Yeah.
I think. And then today it was snowing. So welcome to Asheville.
Welcome to fake spring.
Yep.
So anyways, yeah, that last explanation kind of makes me laugh because it makes me think of this post from a local comedian, Petey Smith McDowell. Have you followed Petey?
I follow Petey. The Ghost in the Mountains Instagram follows Petey, but also I know a close personal friend of Petey's. I haven't met him personally, but you and I both know a close personal friend.
I think I know exactly who that is. So anyways, Petey Smith McDowell is like this local comedian. He's got a really funny Instagram. It's definitely worth a follow. But he made this post about Chicken Alley, and part of the description where it gets to that last little part about smelling the smoke, there's a reaction on there that said, "Smelled smoke in Asheville?"
Yeah.
The whole city smells like smoke.
Yep.
So it made me think of that post that he made about that. But yeah, either way, really good follow on Instagram, especially if you live in Asheville, because it's a bunch of really just recognizable, relatable humor about things around town.
Yeah, he hits it home with the meme culture around Asheville.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah, for sure. It's just Petey Smith McDowell. No relation to the Smith McDowell house, but today's story just might.
Oh, sweet.
So if you go on to read some of these articles about the legend of Dr. Jamie Smith, you'll quickly realize that, as you probably guessed already, judging by Caleb's questions here, none of this can be verified.
Figured as much. But here's something that I think is kind of interesting. So this story obviously is circulated and documented, whether it is verified or not.
Mm-hmm.
You have a town full of people that do performance art. There's like people that are busking and people that dress up as the Tin Men and all that sort of stuff. How easy would it be to put together that attire and go walk up Chicken Alley at night?
I mean, maybe you've got to think there's some sort of like prankster, trickster aspect to some of this.
There's got to be somebody that like put on a dress and stood on Helen's Bridge around Halloween to scare the shit out of people.
I mean, it wouldn't be that big of a shock because it is so accessible and walkable from downtown Asheville.
Yeah.
So potentially so. But yeah, furthermore, there are no verifiable records of a tavern by the specific name of Broadway or Broadways even existing in that exact location during that time. It wasn't till the later Broadways down on Lexington, whenever that opened, but it sure as hell wasn't in the late 1800s whenever this was all going on.
So is it verified that this doctor existed?
No. Records show that there are no stabbing or murder records of anything in that time frame by anyone of the name Jamie Smith that's a victim in any of the stabbings or murders and even years surrounding that. No obituary, no like brief crime report, nothing. In fact, there is no record of anyone by the name Jamie Smith living in Asheville or practicing medicine during that time frame.
So it was probably just somebody that like made up this legend. They based this doctor on Dr. Battle.
I mean, that is highly, highly, highly likely. At least for the character that's assuming that Dr. Jamie Smith is a fictionalized created character. There's a lot of influence being pulled from Dr. Battle. I would say that's safe to say.
Dude, is this our own Vampires of Dillsboro?
There's some other interesting threads that kind of get pulled on this one. So in attempting to kind of do the same thing that I did on this and track through old newspaper archives, there's actually a local researcher writer named Heather Leah. She found a Asheville Citizen-Times article from 1904 that describes the will of a man named James M. Smith, fairly close to Jamie Smith, who seems to have owned a tavern in the general area described in the Chicken Alley legend. But there's no mention of how this man died, and his name is obviously not an exact match to Dr. Jamie Smith. So the details are similar enough that this could be some sort of like historic counterpart for the tavern and maybe the maybe actual person that the doctor character was based on in this legend, but doesn't really give too much of a closure explanation on that. Still leaves it pretty open-ended on that.
Well, the Broadway Tavern is just a very, to me,
generic.
We'll just generalize. It's a bar on Broadway. So it was called the Broadway Tavern.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there were taverns down there.
Yeah. So this is where it gets kind of interesting. But as I'm going through, I hear that name and I'm going like, where does that name sound so familiar from? James M. Smith. Well, another throwback to one of our very first episodes, the Smith McDowell house. The house was in fact built by James McConnell Smith, a successful business owner and one of the very first mayors of Asheville, who built this, the area's first brick house for his children. But he was said to never live there himself. But this was, of course, the infamous Smith McDowell house. He was kind of like just this interesting entrepreneur. He owned like a tannery, a hotel, all these other businesses. I think if we go back to that episode, I want to say there was some talk of there being a legend that he was like one of the first non-native or first white people actually born in this part of America. But either way, he was a big part in the foundations of Asheville itself. So pretty interesting synchronicity, but I did need to be sure that this is the same guy because I really only had the middle initial to go off of. And it seems likely, but the dates definitely kind of muddy the water some on this if we're talking about him being the actual Jamie Smith from this alleged story. But, through historical records, I was able to trace down the will that was referenced in this article from 1904, and it confirmed that James McConnell Smith of Smith McDowell House fame did in fact own a tavern described to be in the same general location as Chicken Alley that he left to his wife Polly in his will.
Well, here's the next question. How'd he die?
James McConnell Smith?
Yeah.
It was just some old age thing. I don't remember the exact cause of death, but it wasn't in a bar fight or anything.
Yeah. Water's significantly muddied.
Yeah, exactly. So, the will does confirm that it's the same James Smith from the Smith McDowell house that owned, for some reason, what is alluded to as a tavern in this. Doesn't give a name. It's an unnamed tavern. So it's kind of safe to assume that this is probably the tavern that this legend took place in. But, the dates and the details from the two histories just don't line up. James Smith wasn't killed in a bar fight. And in fact, he passed away in 1856. Years before the story was alleged to take place, so he couldn't be the same person as this Dr. Jamie Smith character. But again, he did own a tavern that very well could be the same tavern where the story is alleged to take place. Maybe a variation of his name was attached to this legend due to the ownership of the bar. Seems like there's a fair amount of Dr. Samuel Battle influence in this Dr. Jamie Smith character as well, but just because the names seem to be invented, I don't want to completely rule out there being some sort of entity potentially attached to this alley, even though we're seeming like we're striking out on this one.
Well, that's kind of where my brain was going with this. I was like, this seems like there were a lot of wires crossed, but there was potentially something that really occurred here. Somebody that did die in the alley. but I think that maybe some people are getting their wires crossed about exactly who it was.
Little that telephone game, if you will.
100%. And think about it. The biggest reason we're having a game of telephone here was from the lack of telephones back then.
Yeah. So, of course, for the next steps, I wanted to see if I could find any firsthand accounts from people, whether that's blogs, whether that's people posting on Reddit, people saying that they've actually experienced something strange in Chicken Alley, not just, well, the legend says that people in this area say that. No, like that's basically unverifiable, whatever you want to call that, testimonies attached to a
hogwash.
Yeah.
Chicken shit.
That's a good one. That seems relevant. So I found a Facebook post from 7 years ago asking if anyone had seen the doctor's ghost, and a large majority of the responses were like, I've lived in Asheville my entire life and I've never even heard the story.
Yeah.
Which seems to be roughly your response to it as well.
Yeah. Since that's why I'm like, sounds a little Vampires of Dillsboro-y.
Yeah, just a little bit. My favorite response to that was, I have friends that got mugged in Chicken Alley one time. Does that count?
Well, that sounds more believable.
Kind of does. Along the same lines, another website I found had this response: not a true haunt. The only haunt here is vagrants that sleep on the steps. Okay.
That checks out too.
Yeah. Sounds fair. There was another Reddit thread that asks if anyone would walk through Chicken Alley at midnight. And the top response was, I passed out drunk in this alley after midnight. So
dude, I've 100% walked through Chicken Alley probably well after midnight.
Yeah.
Many times.
So I actually found another post on Reddit from a couple that had a wedding in Chicken Alley.
Dope.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. It looked like a lot of fun. But still, no firsthand reports of any ghosts, any hauntings, or anything remotely paranormal with the alley. I mean, I've spent a little bit of time in Chicken Alley before, not like actively investigating or anything, but more like I'd pass through after hearing this legend. Of course, I'd go check it out, and I've been there for a few other things. But the area, it definitely has just kind of a vibe, but you could see how it's easy to attach a ghost story to this place.
Just say drug deal. I'm just kidding.
Even before you get to the alley, there's a row of fairy doors on the side of the buildings along Woodfin Road.
Yeah, little tiny doors. They're super cool.
Yeah. I feel like those have always been there, but I saw an article about them being added in 2014. So like, maybe I'm just going crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember them being there back in the day.
Okay. Maybe that checks out. Or maybe they were more added to it. I don't know. But they kind of just add to this kind of mystic vibe that you have walking up on this place. And then you turn the corner into the alley, and there's this elaborate chicken mural that we talked about at the start of the episode. And it's not quite like a dead-end alley, but you definitely, if you're trying to drive through that thing, you have to tightly maneuver into this narrow passage. And there's this like fairly steep climb to get out the other side. So it's like, it might as well be a dead-end alley. I don't see people driving through that thing.
I've never driven that.
Yeah.
It's way too tight of a corridor.
Yeah. So you alluded to going to a rave back there. I actually used to go to shows at some place that was located right off Chicken Alley when I was in high school. So my friend Wes, he was the first of our friends to get his license. So we would always just like hop in his green Eclipse and roll to Asheville to go see shows that we'd find out about. And I don't know if it was Static Age Records or some other kind of like DIY venue. It was located in Chicken Alley. It was like, if you're walking into the alley from the main entrance, maybe like 2 or 3 doors down on the right.
Yeah. Was it like garage doors that opened up?
Yeah, totally.
That's 100% the place that I ended up at the rave at.
Okay, well, some sort of DIY venue.
And I don't go to raves. I remember being there like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're sitting here telling me a drug deal and you're going to raves here. Shit. We were just going to see, do you remember Kylesa? Is it Kylesa? It's like a metal band from Georgia.
I don't think so.
Okay. Anyways, we went to see them when I was in high school, and it was a pretty rad show. I think they're still playing today, but like that was my first experience with Chicken Alley. It was just like this little DIY independent punk metal show that I don't even know if it was. I always thought it was Static Age Records that was putting it on, but
well, because their storefront would be on the other side.
Side of it, but Static Age does have their own venue in the back of the shop now. But I don't know if they were just operating other shows out of whatever space that we were talking about back in the day.
It was a cool ass spot.
Yeah.
I remember just looking at the entire situation and being like, number one, like I've never been to something like this. This is insane. And then secondarily, just being like, what is this? That was my thought.
It very much felt like, I don't even know how we found out about this show. It was maybe it was like during the MySpace days and
Yeah.
that popped up, or like this was a decently sized band at the time. So like maybe we just saw like a tour flyer and whatever the magazines were at the time that had stuff like that, where, you know, they take out the little half page ads to advertise for their shows. So maybe we saw that, but either way, like it was a packed crowd and just like
Hard to not be packed because it was a pretty small space.
it was decently small, but I mean, coming from like us, we're like freshmen in high school in Brevard, North Carolina. It's like we'd never experienced like a punk or metal scene before. So like coming into something like that, Chicken Alley was kind of a cool introduction for that.
Oh, dude, that sounds fantastic. I thought for a second that you were going to say something about the courtyard that used to be connected to Vincent's Ear. I played a show there in, you know, one of my various punk bands back in, I mean, it was one of the first punk shows I ever played, but we were playing there at the old courtyard. What a kick-ass space. It's all cobblestone back there.
They've reopened. It's like a jazz club now, or jazz bar. It's really nice. My parents went a couple weeks ago. They said it was really cool.
It's so beautiful because it's just all cobblestone and there's like ivy growing all over the place. Like
the jazz vibe definitely fits there for sure.
Hell yeah.
There was another place. It was some like noodle restaurant off of Wall Street that used to, like, after they closed down, after hours, they would have shows. And I remember going to see.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
So see some shows there too. But
I played there.
yeah, it sounds right, because really it was these little like pilgrimages that Wes and I would go on that put you and I into the same orbit, because I remember it's also my freshman year of high school. There was this local thrash metal band called Sanctity. They just signed to Roadrunner Records, and
Nice.
we see they're playing a show at this community center in Asheville. So I go there with Wes, and because it's the early 2000s, of course, there's another rad ska band playing the show that Caleb happened to be playing in.
What up? Yeah, those were the days.
And
that's where we meet the Dr. Captain.
Yep, and the rest is history. So,
which is funny because the drummer from Sanctity ended up being my drummer.
I remember it. Yeah, I remember that. And also Small World on that. Intethid played that show that night as well, featuring Rory Kelly, who is now married to Crystal, who plays bass in Small Doses, which is John, my guitarist in my other band. So
what the hell?
Yeah, all interconnected Asheville music
We are an incestuous bunch.
We are. So yeah, unfortunately, never anything paranormal happened in Chicken Alley, to me at least, but still have some rad memories there. And I don't know, like maybe it's worth our time to hop down there. It's can't be more than 10-minute drive to get down there, 15-minute drive.
Oh, dude.
Go hang out there for a couple hours, see if anything happens, because I don't want to completely close the book on this, even though it looks like a pretty big dead end right now.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, there's obviously some culture forming around it, but
Yeah.
I'm still not completely opposed to the idea that a murder took place down there, but that all of the details got essentially spun into some bullshit.
Yeah, there's just no newspaper record of that, which
No newspaper record of anybody dying around that area at the time.
Yeah, exactly, regardless of whether they were named Jamie Smith or not.
I suppose that makes sense. I mean, maybe this is a dumb question, but I mean, are there deaths that happen in towns like that go under the radar and aren't really reported in news?
Yeah, I would think that's definitely a plausibility, but I would think if it's something like a murder, like a barroom brawl death, that's like headline worthy,
Yeah.
I would think.
And what year was this taking place again, supposedly?
1902.
Yeah, I mean, well, that kind of makes me think death amongst brawling to me seems a bit more common in 1902.
Just a barroom brawl.
Yeah, somebody dies, who gives a shit?
Maybe so. I'm surprised the name James Smith meant shit to me. So.
Yeah, hey, good for you, Dad.
And quite honestly, I'm not trying to like toot any horns here, but like I haven't seen anyone else connect that James Smith name to James McConnell Smith of the Smith McDowell House. So
yeah,
maybe that's one thread that maybe I'm the first to pull on it here, even if it is kind of a dead end. It's still an interesting synchronicity, nonetheless.
That's why you're DCB, the honorary doctorate, honorary captain that I gave you, and I'm just a priest at the Universal Life Church, so I have no power.
So there is one more thing that I didn't want to bring up that I found during my research this week, and that's that the Chicken Alley here in Asheville is not the only haunted chicken alley here in America.
Okay, well, in America, sure, but if you were going to say around Western North Carolina, I was going to be like, what the fuck are we doing?
No, there's one up in Wisconsin, up in Shawano. Is that Shawano?
Sure. I like Shawano more.
Yeah, well, somebody will tell me. Either way, legend has it that when you go down this road called Chicken Alley, you will see mysterious lights coming right in front or behind you, only to vanish as quickly as they appeared. If that's nothing special to you, how about tales of, here it goes, what I promised earlier, phantom chickens?
Fuck yeah.
So there have been reports of people thinking that they've hit one of these chickens with their car, so much so that they stop in the middle of the road. They go out to investigate and see if there's any damage on their vehicle, because they don't only hear this bump, they swear they feel a bump like they're hitting a chicken, only to find out there is nothing there. But they report not only hearing these bumps as they're running them over, they hear the sounds of clucking, squawking coming from these invisible phantom chickens.
Boom.
So,
wow.
I brought them. They're not here in Asheville. They're in the other Chicken Alley. But hey, you got ghost lights, you got phantom chickens. That Chicken Alley seems like it's a little more poppin' than ours.
So this is weird. I'm just going to put this out here. I'm not going to name names, but I was told a story about a person. And keep in mind, I grew up in Western North Carolina in the late 80s and early 90s. And there were some wild people I knew that did some wild shit. And this took place right next to a friend of ours' house, a mutual friend that we speak of often. I'm not going to name names, but their initials are Jesus Christ. And there was this place called the Mile Straight out in Candler.
Okay.
And this guy told me one day he was just driving down the Mile Straight, guy from high school, and he created a ghost chicken because he said there was just this rooster standing in the road. And he was like, well, I'm going to play chicken with the chicken. So he just floors his car. And he says the rooster just stood there in the road. And he was like, come on, move, rooster. And he's still just flooring it. It's the Mile Straight. He thinks, obviously, he'll hear the car revving up.
Yeah.
Said the rooster just stood there. And he just turned it into a poof of feathers. Because he just stood there. He played chicken with the chicken, and he won. Horrible story, but we eat them all the time. It is what it is.
Yeah, you eat them all the time.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My heathen ass eats them all the time. You're like Littlefoot from Land Before Time. Doesn't he only eat leaves or something?
Something like that. Either way, maybe he created a ghost chicken. If someone has any weird ghostly chickenry going on from the Mile Straight out in Candler, let us know.
Yeah. What if somebody is like so horrifically haunted by a ghost chicken out there and then we get the email, finally I'm seen.
Yeah. I mean, ghost chickens, I'm open to it. And, if I'm ever up there in Wisconsin, I feel like I owe it to Chicken Alley to go visit that version of Chicken Alley up there.
I'll have to retrace where I went in Wisconsin. I know I went through Milwaukee, but I'll have to see how close I got to Chicken Alley.
Yeah, right. And again, I want to leave the book open this because it does seem like I could, go either way on this. I think the jury's still out, but before I definitively go one way or the other, I would like to hop down there for, a couple hours and just see what happens. Think the whole vibe of it is you have to go late into the night. Maybe we're just setting ourselves up to get mugged. I don't know. But,
probably.
Yeah. Either way, I kind of have my own working theory on what's going on here, but I think I'm going to save that one for subscribers on tonight's edition of the Midnight Broadcast.
You can hear us talking about all kinds of weird ghost chicken theories if you are a paid subscriber for our mystical post-show, the Midnight Broadcast. But I'll give a little bit of a taste of what I think is going on.
Yeah. Let's hear your taste. I don't want to dive into mine completely just because I really don't know. And I don't want to put out a theory that I'm not like completely 100% sold on without, having my own mind made up internally.
Well, maybe I'm just thinking about this because of a piece of media that I found recently. And I wish to God that I remembered the name of the damn YouTube channel that put this together. But I happen, and not to get onto subjects that are far too grim for our pretty, fun, loving ghost chicken episode. But, I was watching a documentary, basically that was made by a YouTuber that was talking about the potential for there being a serial killer that was active here in Asheville back in the late 80s and early 90s. And the one thing that I kind of walked away from that documentary thinking was, or at least when I was a kid, and obviously, you know, I'm a kid, my parents aren't going to talk to me too much about this stuff, but there was a hell of a lot more murders happening around town when I was a kid than I had any idea that any of that shit was happening.
Yeah.
There was a string of murders, and oddly enough, this kind of ties into what we were talking about with the, you know, the ladies of the night that would hang out around Lexington Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
There was a string of murders where it was seemingly that the prostitutes were being targeted back around the late 80s and early 90s. And I was watching this documentary. It was very well done, but I was really genuinely kind of blown away that there were this many killings and like abductions and this sort of shit going on, and I had no clue. This eventually kind of ties into one of the more well-known murders that took place in Asheville, which was the Karen Stiles murder, where the poor woman was murdered over near Lake Powhatan, basically up in the Blue Ridge Parkway area, which was seemingly unrelated. But as far as I could tell, there were still a bunch of these murders that were inconclusive as to who was the perpetrator. And that kind of got me thinking, like, well, you've got your Gary Michael Hiltons out there.
Yep.
You've got these transient bastards that go around murdering people. But then again, you also have some people that are just right here in town that are killers.
Yeah.
And they get away with the shit. And it's fucking scary because you think about your quaint, loving town, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm just kind of putting it out there. You just never know what people are capable of, what people are always doing out there. And, it, you know, when I look at something like that, it almost says to me, maybe murder is a little bit more common than we recognize. And when I put it in context to, you know, maybe this kind of wires crossed story about a potential murder happening on Chicken Alley, I can't help but think that maybe sometimes shit like that happens, be it a bar brawl or something like that. The stuff just gets, you know, swept under the rug. Maybe because something else happened like a week later that stole the thunder from whatever that would have potentially been. I'm interested in this because at this point, I think it's pretty interesting that you have, you know, a lot of potentially prominent names that are kind of tied to things in the area, but nothing's really quite lining up. This to me seems like the beginning of something rather than the end of the idea of like, well, nah, Chicken Alley's not really haunted. This seems like we're opening up a case, dude.
It sort of does. And it almost begs the question of like, where did the story originate? Like, who was the first one to publish this?
Well, that's my question. Why would this be a story?
Yeah.
I understand somebody making a creepypasta about vampire fanfic in the wake of Twilight. I get it. Whatever. What makes somebody go, no, there's a ghost on Chicken Alley? Maybe somebody was just fucking around, but it seems to me that there's some sort of base in fact going on here.
And someone that knew a little bit of history on that to tie in the references, be it just through the wardrobe to Samuel Battle, and use a name of such a prominent Asheville figure like James Smith.
But also relatively obscure figure.
Yeah.
Which I think is even stranger.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you were saying that this was like E.W. fucking Grove or something, you're like, okay, pal, sure.
No, it's Elijah Grove. It's not, yeah.
Right. But does that not even seem stranger to you that like, here's this person who's known, but like, if somebody said, even we tonight were like,
like I was sitting
why
there
does
like,
this name sound familiar?
Yeah, exactly. I think without the Smith in there, I would not have been able to draw that conclusion.
Sure. Well, I think you and I are pretty much landing in the same spot, dude. There's more to this than...
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see just trying to trace the origins of this because what we mentioned, like, this doesn't seem like one of the ones that Warren has his paws all over, but maybe someone like Warren might be able to shed a little bit of insight to give us some, you know, at least right directions to look in to find the origins of this.
Yeah, that's true. I could always pop over an email to him and just be like, yo, you ever hear anything about this that wasn't BS as far as you're concerned?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's just weird synchronicities that these names that we've covered in past episodes continuously pop up, even if they're ones that haven't really popped up reoccurringly again. I mean, we just covered Dr. Battle a few weeks ago, and here we already have something that seems, eerily similar to his story. And then something like the Smith McDowell house, we haven't really heard many references to the Smith or McDowell family. And then here he goes popping up again. But then you have all these other characters like your E.W. Groves and Fred Seeley's and then fucking Scott Fitzgerald's that just pop up everywhere.
I almost mentioned, I was like, now that we're not bleeping out F-bombs, I can't wait till we talk about fucking Scott Fitzgerald. Yeah. It's not like you guys didn't know that's what we called him, but he was a butthole. There you have it. As far as we know, the water is muddy.
Yeah, that's as much as I could confidently tell you publicly right now with the amount of insight I have currently at this time.
Well, we will go into the midnight and we will broadcast our ideas about what we think. But it is also up to the citizen journalists out there, to the everyman, to every person who has ever drunkenly or non-drunkenly walked through the strange little tight corridor of Chicken Alley here in Asheville, North Carolina. If you or anyone you know has experienced a phantom Dr. Battle cosplayer and or squawking bird from hell barking in the night and laying eggs filled with demon seed, well, please write us at ghostinthemountains@gmail.com and let us know, good Lord, what any of that may be. But that said, Austin, whether any of this is true or not, it fills me with a little bit of intrigue to know that there might still be mysteries in this town that are yet to be blown open, and they could lead to some really bizarre places. Maybe this is just a lead that goes to nowhere. Maybe it is our road to nowhere.
Maybe so. I think I take this as like I mentioned, these little synchronicities, these names that keep popping up, these little threads, even if they seem to go nowhere for now, it's almost like I take it as a sign like, hey, you're on the right path. Keep digging because we're going to keep throwing these little nuggets out there, because even a topic that admittedly I thought was going to be complete bullshit, I found goes a lot deeper than I expected.
Well, while you were just talking, I realized that DCB Dr. Captain Burgess is switched around as CBD. And that said, thank you all so much for hanging in there and checking out our strange episode about Chicken Alley. I know it sounds silly as hell to talk about any of this stuff, but man, I've been incredibly intrigued by everything that we've talked about tonight. I am excited to pull the thread that might end up unraveling something that God knows what it could be. But again, if you or anyone you know has experienced anything strange on Chicken Alley, please write us at ghostinthemountains@gmail.com. If you'd like to know more about what we do, go to ghostinthemountains.com. If you would like to experience and listen to our post show for every episode we do, the Midnight Broadcast, you can become a paid Patreon subscriber, and we very, very much appreciate everyone that listens to any of the things that we do. So thank you very much. Good night and stay spooky, everybody. Austin?
You hear that?
Oh, Jesus Christ! No, wait, that's Benny Hill. All right, I don't even know what I was trying to do with that one, but I am scared. Dude, wouldn't that be freaky as shit, though? You're the only person on Chicken Alley.
And you just hear that?
Yeah, it's late as shit, but you hear like reverbing throughout like the parking garage near there. Just, like reverbing. I would number one think there was just somebody in an apartment fucking with me, but
or like hit a speaker somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's got like a motion detector.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Hey, if you, maybe somebody should do that.
That's a good idea. Really drum up that ghost tour business.
There's your rooster egg for tonight. Good night.